It's That Popular Podcast. Mitch Prinstein is a psychology professor at UNC Chapel Hill and the former chief science officer at the American Psychological Association. Aaron Keck is a political scientist and award-winning radio host. Together, they discuss the popular and not so popular quirks of human behavior. Welcome into That Popular Podcast. Now, here's Mitch and Aaron.
All right, welcome into the show. Mitch, how's it going?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. I apologize. You were waiting upstairs for 5 minutes for me to let you into the building, but my phone was sitting on the other side of the table and I didn't get the text.
You are not the person to apologize. I am horrified that I completely and totally just did not show up last week. It was, oh my God. In fact, all this week I was setting alarms all over the house. Oh my God, don't forget.
Nice.
What really killed me also is that you texted me 5-10 minutes before we were supposed to start. And had I seen that,
right,
I could have absolutely been here on time. But yeah, I think that I am trying so hard to, especially when I can, to keep the phone as far away from me as possible when I'm home.
This is good advice, yeah.
I mean, my wife carries the phone around constantly, right? Even when we're watching TV, she's getting buzzes and responses. But
yep,
I need that electronic leash just taken completely off. And it's this burden lifted from my shoulders. You can't reach me. I don't care if you're trying to reach me. If I knew it was you and if I knew that I was not showing up, then I was horrified. But most of the time, it's actually a really helpful strategy.
For me, the phone, the wallet, and the keys are the three things that I absolutely have to have with me. Not because I need them in any given moment, but because if I don't have them and I feel my pocket and they're not there, it freaks me out.
Oh my God. That's so funny because the first thing I do when I get home is I got to get the wallet, the keys,
oh yeah,
the phone out of my pocket. I just feel literally weighed down by them. I cannot stand it. But
only when I go to bed do I take them out. And when I wake up, I get dressed and the first thing I do is I put them back in, because if I don't, then where are they? I don't know. I've got to look around the house.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The thing though with the phone is that do you remember the days when you would never call someone after 10 p.m.?
Absolutely
that was rude.
not.
And if you did get a call, you'd pick it up and be oh my God, which hospital?
Yeah. Right.
What's going on? And
I'm still in that mindset. My problem is I host the morning show on WCHL. So I'm here in the studio from 6 to 9 and we've got a text line. So I look at the text line to see if something comes in. But if someone sends us a text at 5:45 the day before, then we might not necessarily get it in the evening because it's not anyone's text line. It's just the station's text line. So we look at it. So I'm getting it at 6 a.m.
It's an occupational hazard.
That you have I can answer this question right now, but if I do that, I'm sending someone a text at 6 a.m. and they're going to be in bed and their phone's going to beep and it's going to be annoying. Serves them right for asking a question.
But still, people write all the time at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and there are no boundaries anymore. It sounds like you keep a nice boundary at 6 a.m. Thank you very much, by the way, because
I was going to say,
I am not awake at 6 a.m.
Most of my friends and the people that I connect with, I don't know if that's because they know that I have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, so they don't text me after 10. But for the most part, I don't get texts after 10.
Wow. So here's the thing.
You got to talk to your friends.
I think you are unique in that regard.
That's
so
true.
I think people
That's
know
probably
that
true.
You wake up at dark 30 and then, but here's the other thing. If you think about this from what kids are going through today, they've never lived in a world where there were any boundaries around this. In fact, they might be friends with someone on the other side of the planet, and the only time they can text with them is at some crazy hour in the morning or at night, And this is so interesting because in the research literature, people are talking about this in a way that just for people who did not grow up with this are a little bit baffled by it. It's this idea called digital stress.
Okay.
And it's this whole new thing that just did not exist in the 80s, the 90s. We didn't have this. Remember when you went to school, you would come home, you had at school a high peer interaction time.
Yes.
Everyone around you as a kid, your age. You came home, maybe you had a couple neighbors that you hung out with, but also they were in their homes. So it was a natural shutoff valve. And it's so funny to talk with young people today, but if you called someone on the phone, you might get what was called a busy signal, which is basically you cannot talk to them.
Yes.
You just have to wait.
Yep.
Or maybe the phone would just ring and ring and ring, and there was no little dual cassette thing that would turn on and leave a message. That just didn't happen. So there was just this natural shut off.
Oh yeah.
So what's happening now? What's really interesting is that in work with young people,
People are connected to each other all the time.
And it's so stressful to them. They love it and they hate it at the same time. So, and like secretly when their parents tell them you can't use your phone or whatever, they're all upset, but then they're like, actually, thank you so much. I really needed the break. Like,
right.
There are 4 different areas of digital stress that have been found in like the literature on this, but it's so interesting because we don't think about this as adults, but this is exactly what it's like for young people today. And when we talk with them about using their devices and stuff, it's good to know like what is the way that they're thinking about this. Okay, so I want to tell you about these 4 different areas, but I probably need to give you like a little 2-minute brain anatomy overview.
Okay.
Like bear with me for a second.
Right.
But so everyone knows that your body is changing, during puberty as you become an adolescent, right? And everyone probably realizes that your brain is also maturing, during the same period of time, sure.
Usually.
But in not all cases, unfortunately, but yeah. But what people don't sometimes know is that the brain doesn't mature all at once. Right. It's actually region by region, and it's in a very specific order. It goes from the back to the front, and it goes from the parts that are what we call subcortical. It's the more primitive areas of the brain, the part that is addressing our emotion, our urges, our desires, and also like controlling our body. And the reason why that's important that it's subcortical is because the cortex, the kind of hat that sits on top of the brain, that's the thinking part of the brain, I guess we could say, just to like oversimplify it. So we don't have to think about like, ooh, breathe in, breathe out, or heartbeat, keep going.
So like the subconscious stuff.
Yeah, that stuff is like automatic and it's subconscious.
Yep.
I think that's a good way to put it, like as compared to the cortex. Well, the first parts of the brain to develop are these subcortical areas. And one of the very first areas that starts maturing, and I'm talking like 10, 11, 12, like a year or two before there's any sign that puberty is happening on the body.
Right.
It's what I call the eye rolling region of the brain.
It's
this part of the brain that's like, it suddenly gets tons of receptors for dopamine and oxytocin. So it basically makes kids, if you've ever interacted with a 10 and 11-year-old and all they can talk about is like who sits at one lunch table and who's kind of popular but not like totally popular and who's the one getting the most attention at school, like that's the dopamine and oxytocin just completely on overdrive now, and rolling their eyes at their parents and being like, oh, whatever, you're so lame. That's such a normal thing because of what's happening biologically.
So what does dopamine and oxytocin do that leads to that?
So oxytocin is kind of a brain chemical that makes us want to bond with others.
Okay.
Particularly those our age. It's really interesting. There's like experiments with mice and they experience their entire puberty in a week. Like that's one hell of a week, right?
Right.
But during that week, they are more interested in spending time with other adolescent mice and not the adult mice.
Interesting.
So it's like so biologically like built in there, And then dopamine makes it feel really good when we get that kind of attention from peers. And I'm talking like in the olden days, and by that I mean pre-1990.
Yeah.
That if someone's nodding at you, looking at you, smiling, like that's a dopamine hit.
Right.
This is how we've been for 60,000 years. Now I want to like talk about digital stress overlaid on this like biological thing, right? We don't have peer times and low peer times anymore. Now with devices, you're on. You're interacting with peers constantly.
So that part of the brain is like constantly working.
Like overdrive.
Yeah.
I mean, just constantly. And here's the thing. It turns out that like nodding, smiling, laughing, that's one thing. But a like button, a follower, a comment, whoa.
Yeah.
So we have like the
because you can keep going back to that over and over
it's
again.
Like a slot machine.
It's there. It's still there. Yeah.
I mean, you could just press some buttons and bam, 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 you're getting things lighting up and you're getting responses and like, so this is like the perfect storm, right?
Yeah.
You've got adolescents developing in a way that made sense 60,000 years ago. And now you've got a technology that's like pressing that oxytocin and dopamine loop like a zillion times more than it should be, or that at least we're used to in our species. And what happens is that kids are drawn to it, but let's talk about digital stress because they're also freaking out if they step away from it for the same reason. Okay, so there's 4 areas. I think you and I and most adults could probably identify with a bunch of these too, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
So the first one...
Because what you're describing is addiction, right? Like,
I mean, it's the same...
It pains the part of the brain and it stresses you out and it causes damage, but you're drawn to it.
It's the same brain circuitry.
Yeah.
And interestingly, like a part of the brain that's also subcortical that's right next to this kind of... It's called the ventral striatum, and it's where all that oxytocin and dopamine is making you excited about social kind of, feedback. It's a little area that some researchers refer to it as a motivational magnet. It says whatever you just got a dopamine hit for, go get more of it.
Yep.
So just like you're saying, you suddenly like subconsciously crave or find yourself moving towards something, and you don't even realize why, but it creates that repetitive behavior.
Yep.
So this is a concern, right? But when you hear teens talk about it, they don't say, "Oh, I hate this and it's bad" or whatever. They talk about it as stress.
Yep.
And they're like, "I have a job that I have to do every day, and you can't relate to it as an adult because you didn't have this. This just didn't even exist." Okay, so the first part is what's called notification overload. I totally relate to this. My LinkedIn, my Slack chat, my Teams chat, my email, my messages, some boomer is sending me a voicemail. Like all of these things are lighting up like at the exact same time on my phone.
Oh my
and I'm
God,
like,
yes.
I have to respond to each and every one of these things, and I can't just let them sit there for 24 hours. If I see that little red bubble over an app, I have to get rid of it immediately.
Of course, yep.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm an adult. Imagine that these were coming with like a biological necessity attached to it. Like you have to respond. And this is why I say that the last part of the brain to develop is actually the part in the very front, all the way towards the top. It's right below our forehead, and it's called the prefrontal cortex. Mm-hmm. I think the best way to describe that is like the brain's brakes. It's our inhibition center. It says, just stop. Think it over, consider the pros and cons. You don't have to do everything impulsively.
Right.
So imagine that these kids are like all gas pedal with like go, go, go for social feedback, and they don't have fully developed brake pedal yet. And then you're notifying them like, Jane Doe, the most popular girl at school, just tagged you in a photo.
Yep.
Like you can't not go look at that right now. And that's what's happening is that they're getting all these notifications, and it's just, I can't manage it. I don't know how a 14-year-old can do it.
So like we're in North Carolina, and there is a law that just passed at the state level, which is now being filtered down to school districts, and they're implementing them even as we speak, where students can't have their phones in the classroom in the school building. Yep. That's great for in school because the phone can be a distraction in class. Then they get the phones back, they go home, and then that does nothing to address the digital stress, because then now they've got to like catch up on the last 6 hours on top of what they were already doing to begin with.
That's exactly right. And hopefully their friends are also in districts where they're not using their phones. But there's actually some research that shows that if you bring the phone to school and it's in your locker or it's in your backpack and you know that it's buzzing and you can't get it, it's actually more stressful than just having left it at home in the first place. So it's a little bit tricky how schools choose to address this. Like keep it in your backpack under your seat. Mm-hmm. Or don't even bring it.
Right.
Or stick it in one of those pouches. So that's a big part of this.
Put it in a place where you can't like faintly hear it going zzz, zzz, and you can't get to it.
Can you ignore it when you hear your phone buzzing just out of reach? Like you're on air, so you probably have to do that more than others.
I have to train myself, Also, the nice thing is because I'm on the air, I cannot have my phone make noise. So I always have it on mute.
Yeah.
And I unbuzz most of my apps. So the only time my phone ever does anything at all is when some boomer calls me or when I get a text or a Facebook message. Those three things are the only times. Oh, and when Google Photos sends me like memories from 4 years ago. I haven't figured out how to shut that one off yet, but everything else is off.
I mean, it's cool that your job requires you to create boundaries. Yeah. But most of us don't have that, and it interferes with our sleep and our job. And again, for kids, so there are some other parts of digital stress that kids have told us about. Mm-hmm. So another one that they talk about is FOMO, which a lot of people have heard about, but it's, fear of missing out. And it's this idea that
FOMO, fear of missing out.
It's this, when you get to school the next day, there's been like an entire school day of gossip and activity that's happened online since the time you left school. And you don't want to show up at school and be like, what do you mean so-and-so broke up? Or what do you mean that someone did something embarrassing? Like, Because that would be humiliating for you the next day. You're going to totally get shunned or feel excluded. And again, remember, this is a biological push here. So there's that. And then interestingly, the third area is what's called availability stress. And it's this idea that, and if you've talked to a teenager, you absolutely have heard this. It's not that they want to be on there 24/7. It's that they can't not be on there. If their friend posts a selfie, you have to log in, especially like, let's say, adolescent females that are more likely to post full body selfies.
Right.
You have to, within 10 minutes, you have to tell them how hot they look in their selfie. That's like totally a friendship violation to not do that.
Right.
And they'll text you and be like, I can't believe that you didn't comment on my selfie within milliseconds of me posting it. How dare you? You know?
Yeah.
So they feel this obligation that they have to be on there liking everything their friends post. They can't leave anyone on read with texts. It's like a job.
Yeah.
It's so stressful.
A 24/7 job.
24/7. That's why they're not falling asleep.
You are literally on call all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people get mad at them. And then of course, there's this kind of approval issue, which is the fourth area, which is the idea that if you post something yourself, how long do you spend looking at your own post to see, is it getting likes? Is it getting comments? Are they good comments? For them, think about that oxytocin and dopamine. We asked undergraduates in our class when we talked about this, how long on average do you spend kind of looking at your own post after you posted it? I think like over a third of the class said they do nothing for 30 minutes other than stare at their phone, hit refresh, and monitor. And then maybe write to people and say, get on there, quick, like it, comment on it.
I could see that.
Because you don't want to get canceled.
Right.
Right? Like you don't want someone to say something horrible and then you got to take it down. And if you don't get a lot of likes, you can't just leave it up there. You got to take that down and try again and do it better next time. More clickbaity.
I do remember the one time I wrote a piece for our website that went semi-viral, and it was 9 years ago. It was 2016. It was about HB2, the anti-trans bill, and it actually like took off in a very real way.
Yeah.
And it was a wild week because it wasn't even going super viral, like millions of whatever. Like we're in the hundreds of thousands of people like responding, which is a big deal. But nothing like what some people experience. It was a very weird week because I caught myself like refreshing pages and looking for comments and how many likes, and we can track page views on the website. So I was doing that pretty obsessively to like, when are we going to hit the six figures? And I was 36.
Oh my God.
I was 36 years old.
Yeah.
Acting
a fully
like that.
developed
Imagine
prefrontal
10.
cortex.
Yeah.
It is though, like when you have that experience, we are just human beings. We all have that dopamine rush. It feels very connected to our cravings, our desires in ways we don't even think about. I mean, we're all working with the same hardware here, and it makes perfect sense that we're going to have that reaction. What's scary is I was at the grocery with my daughter when she was really, really young, and she was in the cart, like in the little front, and I was giving her like a little applesauce pouch, and we're going through the aisles, and she's like, oh, can I get a coloring book for, can I get something for Frozen? Because that was the big movie at the time, and Elsa and Anna. And I go to get her a little coloring book, but next to it was this magazine, Teen Beat or Tiger Beat?
Tiger Beat. Yeah.
Tiger Beat, yeah. Not a magazine that I subscribe to, but it was really curious, was on the front.
Actually, there might also be a Teen Beat. I've heard of Tiger.
I know
Tiger Beat is a thing that exists.
I know this is some sort of like tween locker pinup thing, but I don't know much about it. But the cover story was how to get your posts to go viral or how to become social media famous. I think it said. So I was like, wait a minute, what? Because this is what like we study and everything. So I kind of thumbed through it a little bit, and it told them how to like deeply care and manipulate their posts to go viral. And I'm like, this is probably directed towards like an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
Is that the readership? Like,
big time.
Teaching them how to lean into this dopamine oxytocin loop. Like, it kind of horrified me in a weird way.
Oh, you think you're horrified? Imagine your daughter sitting there watching her dad reading Tiger Beat in the middle of a public place. You are
she's
so
like 3.
embarrassing.
I know, yeah. So that whoosh. Okay, but like, no, it was so like, oh my God, it was so crazy to me to think like, I can't believe that we're actually actually teaching kids to care about the number of their followers and likes and making them feel like, oh, the awkwardness of adolescence will go away as soon as you reach 100,000 followers. Like that's what we're teaching kids now.
Yeah.
Like, but something, we don't even have to be that explicit. It's just built into the way these things work now, the notifications, the likes. And so here's what we did. We did a study where we looked at digital stress. We surveyed, kind of using the criteria that I just talked about. We surveyed kids in 8th grade. 45% of 8th graders reported that their digital stress was so high, it was interfering with their daily roles and routines. It kept them from sleeping, homework, having in-person interactions. And the more digital stress they reported, we followed them up a year later, the more depression they had a year later. Because we know that stress, especially interpersonal stress, is one of the biggest predictors of depression for adults and kids, over time. So it's like kids are living in a world that we just didn't have, and they have a stressor that we just can't relate to from our childhoods. Maybe we get it a little bit from our own adult experiences, but it's imagine it magnified, right? Like for them.
Okay, so 4 questions, and they're all the same question, just 4 different parts. Parents, schools, social media companies, policymakers. Yeah. What should those 4 groups be doing?
Policymakers, let me start there. Like, you got to take away the notifications, the likes, the comments for young kids. It's like the reason why we don't have subliminal advertising, because we know that there are ways that you can exploit the brain. And this is exploiting the brain of young people. Like, you just can't have that for young people, period. I think that for teachers, talking with them about digital stress and helping them to identify, when is it happening to me? What are the signs? What are the ways it's happening? And let people talk about it openly rather than adults kind of like rolling our eyes and being like, I don't know why you're on that thing. Why do you take a picture of the ceiling and then send it to your friend just to keep up a streak? I don't get it. Like, I think we got to be like, I get it. I get it's super important to you. I get it's biologically important to you. Like, let me be a support for you. Mm-hmm. Parents, I think, we're doing this a little bit in our house. Like, we're going to go get frozen yogurt and we're all going to leave our devices in the car, or we're going to leave them at home. Maybe one of us brings our watch just in case we get a flat tire in the middle of the road, And let's model for the kids, here's how to get away from your device. That's normal and good. Mm-hmm. Let's value that time. And let's talk about how hard it is. And let's be honest, like, it's hard for us sometimes too. And look, you might miss a really important text that says that you're completely missing an appointment that you promised that you would be there. But I think like just helping to create a family dialogue, to be like, this is stressful. These are platforms built to get us to stay on for as long as humanly possible. And it's hard for us to fight back unless we support each other and do it together.
Mm-hmm. You passed over tech companies. Are they just a lost cause at this point?
I mean, because
they do have a real strong economic incentive to try to lean into this instead of leaning away.
That's the thing. Yeah. I mean, I just personally believe that there's no amount of money that is worth children's well-being being sacrificed. And I have to imagine that there are many, many people who work at tech companies who absolutely agree with that. But some decision maker out there, or many decision makers out there, are clearly making the choice, it would seem, to choose profit over, what's best for kids. Yeah. And I just hope that one day they realize that there is a direct responsibility for kids experiencing an undue level of stress that it's just not worth it.
It's also the problem of like overcoming the inclination that we all have to rationalize our decisions that benefit us personally, right? One of my favorite quotes of all time is Benjamin Franklin in his autobiography. I'm a reasonable person, and the thing that's great about being a reasonable person is you can come up with a reason for anything, right? There are all of these folks in tech companies. And no, it's great for kids to be able to access social media 24/7 because this excuse and this excuse and this excuse, and you can brainstorm great sounding excuses all day.
I think that's so right. And I think whatever rationalization is being used to feel okay about those decisions, let's just hold up the science and really say, look, we have very, very clear evidence to say that kids are dealing, in addition to the crazy stress that they report to us about academic pressures and concerns about gun control and climate change, we are adding an unnecessary stressor onto them they are biologically unprepared to combat.
Yep.
It just feels unfair. It feels cruel. And the more that we can have people understand the science, we can vote with our own decisions in our own homes. And if the people rationalizing this for themselves and continuing to do it won't change, then we can take the power. We're the customers. And we can say, I'm not going to use it at these hours. I'm going to set up a sleep setting on my phone, which I, by the way, started using. And I love that it says to anyone, like, I'm not going to get your notifications. So they don't think I'm leaving them on red. Sorry, I have chosen this time for focus or rest or family. And please respect that. And I'm walking away from the device.
Love it.
This has been That Popular Podcast. Find all our episodes on thatpopularpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.